And we're joined in the studio by our regular guest, Wildernet. Introduce yourself. Carry on.
Good morning. Yes. Hi, how have you been?
Not too bad, thank you very much. And yourself? You've just come back on holiday, you said?
Yes, I had a whole week off, of which I only worked 3 of those days. So,
Right.
Yeah, that was
okay.
great. Yeah.
So you've only had a holiday where you've worked 3 days. Okay.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
sounds like my producer. She's a bit like that as well. So holidays yesterday. She's supposed to be on holiday. Straight on the email system
That's
to check
it.
what's going on. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start off in the morning, go, I'll just do these couple of emails, and then it's 10:30, isn't it? And then
And how did that go down with the other ones? yeah.
My wife is very understanding.
Oh, that's
so,
good to hear. Yeah, because there's always that negotiation, isn't it? So,
Absolutely,
but I did have the same problem myself yesterday as well, where my laptop and people kept phoning me up. Why don't they know that you're on holiday? I don't.
It's a magic, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Yes, yeah.
No,
Sort of,
being as you're doing nothing,
yeah,
you do this.
Yeah. You know, they almost sort of home in on it, isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it? So, yeah. And tell us about the dog. I think this is the big conversation of the day.
Yeah, the big news for us today is we're getting a second dog, a rescue dog. He's come in from a Romanian kill centre, so Amanda's going to pick him up this afternoon.
Lovely.
And we'll introduce our dog to him in the house. He met him yesterday, and they both ran around like loons, which was very good.
Right, okay, that's good to hear.
But he seems he's quite social with other dogs, but doesn't seem to know or care what people are. So it shows he hasn't been harmed. You know, he's not been badly treated. He's just been nothing. So,
Nothing. Yeah. So this
yes.
is one that was on the streets, was it? Or
Yeah, on the streets in Romania, apparently, the way they have dogs is slightly different. They're sort of, you know, you'll feed a dog and that'll be the dog that comes near your house, but not really
Right.
the way that we have pets, as I understand it.
Okay.
And then the dog shelter people will go around and literally loop them with one of those nooses, hoik them into the van and take them off to be euthanized.
Oh gosh. Okay.
And the lovely lady sort of rescues them and brings them over,
Right.
as many as she can, as far as I know.
Yes,
Yeah, I don't know how many
yeah.
she does in a year, but I think it's a few.
Yes.
And so we met. They notionally called him Theo for his dog passport.
Right. Okay.
So Amanda met him on Wednesday, and I met him yesterday. He's lovely.
Oh, that's
chap.
good. So, yeah, sounds it. Yes. Yeah. Is it quite full of life or?
Yeah, definitely bouncy fellow. Yeah,
Great.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, he should be good fun. Yeah.
Brilliant. Hopefully he'll settle down quite well as well then. So yeah.
I think a bit of patience is going to be in order with him. You know.
Definitely, yes. Yeah, it's interesting because when you go, because like Italy's got a similar thing, hasn't it? I don't know, they don't seem to actually collect the dogs, but a lot of wild dogs in Italy running everywhere, and they just live on their own little packs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he looks like, so he was really good with our dog,
Right.
in that he was over and that they were very social.
Yeah.
But came up to us with a treat and then off again. There was nothing, you know.
Really?
Thanks and all, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
off.
So he's obviously got that dog instinct of like, give me the food. Yeah.
So we're going to have to spend a month or so teaching him a name, and you know, every time he comes to his name, we pay up with bacon treats or whatever.
The
it
dog
takes.
biscuit, that's it. Yes, yeah. We had been looking after a dog sort of on and off a bit this week because where we're in staying. But there's a lovely Labrador, but he doesn't half trick you. He will pretend that he's not been fed for months.
That's the Labrador thing. Yeah,
It is. Yeah. And
no idea why that bowl's empty. You need to sort this out.
And he will go along and rattle the cake like a burglar with his sort of like a cup against the sort of the grill. And he'll rattle his bowl until somebody comes and fills it up, kind of thing.
I remember a friend of ours had 2 Labradors, and they came in from a night out and they'd got in under the kitchen sink.
Oh gosh!
And they'd emptied out the bag of food, and they couldn't move. They'd ate so much. So they were just 2 round-bellied dogs just going. That was great.
Yeah. We've had a good night out as well. Yeah. But is it after you've been out? Of course, you know when you come back, it's always that pizza kebab moment, isn't it? You know,
so they'd had the same thing.
They did, yes. Yeah. And I do love watching the sort of dog psychology. We've had, like I say, been watching this sort of interaction because we were looking after one house. The owners popped back and they had a Dalmatian. What is it with Dalmatians and their smile? They've always got the teeth out, haven't they?
Yes, it looks a bit angry sometimes.
It does, yeah. They've got this sort of wagging the tail.
Yeah, they're really nice dogs, though. Yeah,
lovely pets. Yes, yeah. But they've always got that sort of very intense and intensive, sort of like intimidating smile, almost. Yeah. And of course, you've got the Labrador as well, who's much older, and he was she's much older. And of course, you got this interaction then between the sort of like the Dalmatian and the who wants to bounce around and play.
Yeah.
And the black Labrador just wants to
plodding.
sleep. Yes, yeah. But they are great. And is this something that you've always wanted to do then?
So we always had 2 dogs until through the death of one dog, we ended up with one dog who, when it got home, was so pleased to be an only dog.
Right.
We didn't dare get another one. She went, that's mine. I live here and this is all mine.
Really?
So we didn't get another dog. And now with Woody, he's 2 years old now.
Right.
So it's about time to get a friend for him. So
Yeah. And do you train them up yourself, or do you?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting how training has changed over the sort of past 20, 30 years, hasn't it? We've gone from tugging hard on a lead to treating and treat positive reinforcement. So don't shout at the dog, give it a reward when it does it right, and then reinforce that. It's changed a lot.
Teaching behaviour. My ex-partner, she used to teach dogs. She could teach them to literally wee on command, which was really important at times, and a well-trained dog is a beauty, isn't it? It's a beautiful thing.
There's a few commands I think you must get your dog to do, like come to you first, stay where it is, getting them to pee and things is really useful. If you're on a journey, get out the car. It'd be really great if you peed right now.
Do it now. Sort it out.
Having lived in Cyprus, another important one was to get them to drop things out of the mouth.
Right.
Because people leave poisoned meat around and things. Oh. So it was always a command that I thought was really important. So drop it. It's kind of make sure they do that.
Right. Is that to sort of like combat wild animals then, or?
Well, there was a lot of wild cats in Cyprus. That was the thing, rather than dogs. So I presume it was for that, but poisoned meat just lying around, which a dog thinks is
food.
Happy Christmas.
Yes, of course, and then nobbles it. That's not good. So well, all the best with the dog anyway. I hope it settles in really well. So I bet you're sort of looking forward to that.
I've got to choose a name for him first.
Right, okay, And you've moved into house, so can I dare ask you whether you bought new curtains then? Because that dog is going to be...
No, we haven't bought new curtains yet. Right, okay. So yes, chewing the bottom of the curtain is going to be a thing.
Oh, okay. You just got the old ones up at the moment. So sort those out and we get some new ones later, that kind of thing. So, we'll talk a little bit more about Wildnet, the reason you're in, if that's okay in a moment. So, and obviously we'll have a quick conversation because you appear to be digging up an awful lot at the moment. So
we are.
People have made comments, so we will discuss that in a moment. So, joining the studio with Wildnet today, we're talking about good broadband connection around the area. Where are you digging at the moment?
So right now we are extending through Liskeard. You'll find us in the west and the south of Liskeard, and then moving over towards the Pengover area.
Right, okay.
But also Dobbles, we're heavy into there at the moment, starting to push that to live now. So
okay, great.
Customers start getting connected from this afternoon, as I understand it.
Brilliant, okay.
Including my house.
Lovely, ideal.
So we're moving on through. We're trying to cause as little disruption as possible, but sometimes you have to put traffic lights up or close a footpath and things like that for people's safety, and so that the guys can work fast as well. We want to get in and out. And put it right as quick as possible.
Because it's just one of those, I suppose, like you say, have you had much reaction to that in terms of people?
I confess that we had quite a positive reaction in on a Facebook thread in Dobbles a couple of weeks ago. We have 3 different sets of contractors that we're using, and it seems that they're being really polite to the people around, and as helpful as possible, kind of thing.
Great,
which is really great. You can't predict that when you take on a digging crew, but these guys are great. So it's really nice that they're being like that. A few complaints, but that's
part of the course.
It kind of is. We try and do our best to stop that and to do it, and to make good when we can. But you can't always, satisfy everybody in every way, and sometimes things happen. No matter what. Things you put in the way.
It's part of it, isn't it? And I think I bumped into some of them. Is it Pendine you were working along, wasn't it?
Yes, Pendine, we're finished now. So that's all live there.
Yeah, and they seem, like you say, very professional and very friendly as well. They were sort of like, couldn't do enough for you, but they weren't sort of trying to get in the way of anybody.
That's it. I mean, it's moved on along since we were doing it in the 90s, where it was we have a right to be digging here, and we're going to be digging. It's a little more cooperative nowadays.
It's far better that way, isn't it?
I think so. And it's it's aiding us in our speed, and it leaves something behind. A good feeling when we've left, rather than a poor one.
Sure. And what sort of speed are they going to get up at Dobbles then? Are they sort of like?
We do a minute. Well, everything is running at a gigabit.
Right. Okay.
But we can go up to 10 gigs. So the speeds that are available there are 200, 400, and 900 megs, depending on what price bracket you want to be in.
Okay.
So fast is where we want to be.
I can say that one of my friends was looking at your deal, and he was trying to get some information about the router because he's worried about his gaming. I think he's very into his gaming.
Still low latency. So the router that we use is what's called an Adtran RG400.
Right. Okay.
Really friendly, really configurable. Gamers need not worry. It's very low latency.
Right. Okay.
We've had a 1 millisecond time trial on one of the Pendine Avenue connections. So I think that'll.
I'll let him know if he wants to. So I must admit, gaming sort of passes me by quite a bit. So
it's one of those things. If you move the joystick, you can't have your person move half a second later, can you?
No,
I
suppose
need to move
not.
Right now. Yeah.
From what I understand, he's busy sort of saving the universe from some sort of invasion somewhere at the moment.
It's important work.
It is important work, And I say, I expect he needs a cup of tea at some point, but but like he is worried about it.
Yeah, I used to be a fan of Battlefield, but that was the original one. I think they're on about the 7th or 8th version of it by now.
Oh right, okay. Again, like I say, it sort of passes me by quite a lot.
They're good games. Yeah.
But though my brother and we do have a sort of private network when he comes back down. We play the original version of COD, which we quite enjoy together.
Nice.
So yes, and that's just me and a tank and him on the ground or whatever it is.
Okay.
It's quite good fun, I must admit. But I don't tend to play the games outside of that. I must admit, it's just like pass me by. Yeah. But what's interesting, we're talking about this during the week, is the psychological impact of some of these games. They're sort of talking about PTSD. This was a couple of years ago. I don't know whether that progressed, of some of these more intense video games. I don't know whether you've sort of come across this.
I suppose if you immerse yourself deeply in something, then it's going to affect you, isn't it? Yeah,
definitely. It's quite a fascinating topic, I think. This
the psychology of gaming has been. I think there's a few PhDs being done in that area.
I think there's quite a bit of research going on in that way. But I think it is interesting that the way the brain is sort of like, we are becoming this merge of the digital to the real world so much.
Yet still caveman.
Yes, it's still caveman. Yes, we can't interpret it in the way that perhaps we need to. And maybe 100 years' time, our bodies will be better at adapting to it and accepting it. Probably have bigger thumbs, as they say. Which is always the way of the RSI. But no, I do find it fascinating. This sort of, like we talked a bit about it before, about the sort of psychology of technology and the way it impacts on our lives. And it's.
There are nice games out there as well, aren't they? That give better feelings as well. So
yes,
they're not all angry killing people games.
Yeah,
there's cooperative gaming out there and things like that, or building games and things like Sims and things.
Sims, yes, that's
a great game.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody, and I'm surprised in some ways, but it's the financial value of it that people put on the land and things in some of these games. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I remember playing a game called EVE Online.
Right.
And people were spending tens of thousands of pounds buying credits to be able to buy one of the largest spaceships, and then putting it into a battle, and that was it.
Really?
Yeah.
You're joking.
There's some quite famous in that arena articles around where there was so EVE Online was a number of star systems, and you traded in between them, but also you could invade them and take them over.
Right.
It's all cooperative, all online, so you're talking to other people and forming alliances and things like that. And in one of them, they ambushed several million credits worth of spaceships.
No.
These people lost actual money. Yeah.
I just don't.
Just amazing.
Yeah, I just can't get my head into that, to be honest. I find it a bit like, I could never justify spending money on a virtual world. The bit that I find pernicious in that is the microtransaction side of it. If you're, out there and spending money for something you're doing, but loot boxes and things like that, I think, are a bit pernicious. Right,
But the microtransactions where it's $8 to change the colour of your shirt or something seems a bit much.
That's a bit much. Yeah. And again, it's because the children don't pick up on it, do they? And it's just making sure the parents and adults
surprise on the credit card.
Yes, yeah. But I've got you a nice spaceship, Mum. Thanks, dear. Yes, yeah. But do you find that, like, the whole Bitcoin thing is, again, I find this. I don't know. I kind of think it's going to go pop at some point when people realise there's no real physical value as such behind it. I know there is some discussion about what it's worth, and
on a theoretical level, there's no value to any currency. It's only because we agree there is.
Yeah, I suppose.
The pound isn't backed up by gold or anything anymore. It hasn't been since the 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
So it's only because we agree it has a value that it does.
Yes.
The downside to Bitcoin and things like that is the energy they use to do the transactions. The constant computer running is something like more than the electricity use of Iceland or something like that.
It's extraordinary, isn't it?
All of the time. And as it goes on, it increases. So over time, it will use more and more electricity to keep itself running. I don't know how you deal with that. Our currency, has a physical, you can move it around. I wonder if we added up all the credit card transactions, that it'd have the same electricity usage. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a good question. Of course, you've got to produce physical currency as well, so that's all carbon footprint on that side of things as well. So
and the other thing that seems to happen as well is that people seem to be able to pump and dump these cryptocurrencies.
Yes.
Elon Musk did it a few months ago, where he said he bought some and the value went up 25%.
That's right,
And then all of a sudden he seemed to sell it,
Yeah, I know. And it's just like, again, that sort of regulation side's not really there yet.
So where our pound and the interest rates and things and the transactions are, bound by law, big currencies and cryptocurrencies tend to be a bit of a free-for-all.
They are at the moment. I know some sort of countries are beginning to look at using them as a sort of standard currency within their own right, aren't they? But it is odd. I think the whole financial market and system's a bit odd in its own way in some ways. Like you say, this fictitious value that we give to a pound coin.
Yeah.
What does it back up? Nothing.
It's an agreed value, isn't it?
It is, so, yes.
We both give it the same value, which is fine. That's our agreed,
Yeah.
And the interesting side to it is with stock trading in America, with the whole AMC and GameStop trading shares, where it's been shown that they've, the traders were buying futures in it to drop the price. But they're not actually buying the shares when they're supposed to. So
no.
Where's that going? And the regulator doesn't seem to be getting involved.
No, and again, that's all this sort of like the black, sort of like the try to find the right word. The mysterious side of it all, I suppose, is the right way to describe it. Yes, and the hidden shadows of all this.
Definitely,
the money markets. Which I think, I suppose, perhaps we don't want to close it off, because at the end of the day, people get money from it, and it does, like we say, the black economy. I don't know if I spoke to you about this before, but if you stop the black economy tomorrow, I expect a load of pubs will close. Because the builders,
a lot of things would, absolutely,
because obviously,
I think we all know somebody who works more under the table than over the table.
Very much so, but they're probably ones sort of supporting the local pub. So of course that, and I'm not sort of casting aspersions,
or just their own families,
and I'm not casting aspersions or saying right or wrong, but it's just an interesting thing that if you stop the black economy, and is there any difference between the builder who comes in and says, "I'll do this on the QT without the VAT," to the person that's sort of putting money into a tax exile somewhere else? Is there any difference really in terms of the ethics and morals?
Like Greece, where nobody pays tax.
And I am talking hypothetically because it's an interesting conversation. It's just discussing it really. And Greece is interesting because my sister-in-law is Greek, and we went over there just when they were sort of starting to get on top of their tax system. And you go into a restaurant, and if they don't bring you the bill, you don't have to pay. You can walk away. Because it's forcing the owner of the business to put it through their till register.
I see.
That way they won't get the money.
Bizarre.
Yeah. So basically force them to pay the tax that they are meant to be paying. So, so it is one of those things, I can understand
I liked in Greece when they introduced a tax on swimming pools.
Did they?
And they were using aircraft to check the houses.
Yes.
And so everybody bought camouflage nets for their gardens.
Yes, that's right, to hide the swimming pool. Yes, that was in a Simon Reeves programme. I think they were talking about it. Yes, the world of money. Yes. Sorry, we've just drifted a little bit off the ambling topic, but that is part of the show. And like I say, I'm certainly not condoning tax avoidance or anything like that. But it's just an interesting concept. I think when you look at it, in terms of you get one person that sort of says, "Okay, I'll diddle here," and he says in inverted comments, but you've got somebody else diddling on a much bigger scale.
I mean, at some point you have to support the economy you live in, and you can't you can't have a society that avoids paying for the society.
Sure.
So it can't. It's not a long-term strategy for any society to do that.
No. And I think this is one of the interesting conversations I was having this week about the sort of like the social care system, about trying to make it balanced in a way that catches people but also doesn't become a way of life. And again, it's that interesting conversation about how do you get there.
Yeah.
And it's very, very difficult.
There's a can the government kicks down the road.
Very much so, yeah. We all do, don't we? So anyway, we will come back and talk a bit more about broadband as well. Cool. So thanks for indulging that conversation. Right, we'll come back. You've had a couple of requests, I think. Who is this for in your company? We've got Wild One? Yeah.
Yeah, from Nick. He's our head of networks.
Right, okay, yes, yeah. And this is the Wild One,
This is one that he used to, when he was in Belize,
doing
the radio station there. That was what he used to start his show with.
Oh, we've got a professional listener, have we? Oh, you didn't tell me that when you came in. So. Do you want to do a show, Nick? Because we are looking for more presenters. Pop on down. So yes, is he around to do a show? Or
unfortunately, he lives in Torquay, so
no excuse. You can pop in. You can do it from home as well. So we'll sign you up there, Nick. Thanks very much. And that was a dedication request there from another one member of your staff, I believe. So in the summertime, I'd say it does cause a bit of controversy, so it wasn't my choice. I would like to stress that one. So.
Let's blame Erin entirely.
Blame Erin? Okay, all right. Erin, this is your fault. So if I get any criticism and complaints, I should pass them on to you. I know where you work, so I should drop the letters into you. So we're just talking a little bit about the Wildnet and how much you're progressing. And one of the questions I was actually going to ask you is the environmental side, actually, about obviously the carbon footprint is a big conversation at the moment, and it's something which is being discussed locally, and it was actually in the news again today with the town councils and county councils all making commitment to environmental policies at the same time expanding their airports. So again,
something we take very seriously. So moving from a copper-based internet to a fibre-based has massive savings in terms of carbon footprint. Instead of having battery-backed system that's electrically operated via copper, going over to fibre optics uses less than 10% of the electricity.
Wow, okay.
So in that way, we're more environmentally friendly than the copper network. In terms of how we operate, our investor is a deeply environmental organisation. So we have to report our carbon footprint to them.
Okay.
And we are introducing hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles as we go along. I have one, and our chief operating officer has an electric car.
Great, okay.
We have a few hybrid vehicles now. I'm always on the lookout for a van that will do a day's work with a battery.
Sure.
Don't think we're quite there yet. We would need a vehicle to come from here to go all the way to Land's End and back.
Yes, yeah.
And then vans aren't quite there. Electric cars are there, but a van with a ladder on and what have you, not quite capable yet. Maybe in the next few years, but that's something we seriously look at. The warehouse that we're just about to take over in Pensilva has solar power on the roof.
Okay, great.
So we're reducing our footprint that way as well. So
great. Okay, that's good to hear. Yeah.
We try where we can. Unfortunately, at the moment, most diggers and things like that are diesel operated. So,
yes.
There's not a lot we can do about that yet. Yeah. The few electric vehicle or diggers and things you see are more experimental than scaled yet.
Yes,
I think over the next 5-10 years that might change.
Yeah. It is an interesting conversation, and I think it's one of those that we all sort of make in the balance on, aren't we? It's trying to work out what is the most environmental way of doing something, and obviously replacing a petrol-driven car. Yes, you might reduce your carbon footprint in the long run with the electric one, but obviously the process of just removing that vehicle that's already been constructed has a carbon negative effect.
Well, you would say that that's already sunk into the profile, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the savings on an electric vehicle are very clear. There's an immediate environmental impact on it in terms of how much electricity you're using and how that electricity is generated that you're using, but also the manufacture of an electric vehicle compared to the manufacture of a ICE vehicle, an internal combustion engine vehicle, is much more environmentally friendly. Yes, there's lithium mining involved, but that's still less dirty than oil mining, or mining, or drilling.
Drilling, it's a fair description though. So
a spade for getting oil is going to be difficult, isn't it?
Oops.
So the environmental impact going electric is much better.
Yes.
I don't think there's a solid scientific argument that says otherwise.
No, I think you're right about that, and I think it is one of those that we'd look forward to. I think fuel cells to be
and as an electric car user, I would say once you've tried it, you won't go back.
That's great to hear. So how do you work out then? You said you have to report your carbon footprint back to your investors. So how does that?
So on our board report monthly, we state how many miles we're driving on all our vehicles and the different types of vehicles and the footprint calculation from that, and then on an annual basis, our electricity usage, as part of the business and things like that, we report back as well.
Right, and does that include the end user bit?
No,
or not?
that's literally our operations.
Right,
So essentially anything we pay a bill for, that's what we measure.
Okay, that's fascinating. And it's good that the investors taken that approach as well. And I think that's one of the things, it is sort of like, it's almost got to be driven from all ends, isn't it? Top down, bottom up. we all want a better
when
and greener
you've got
world.
investment companies saying you must do that,
Yes.
we don't have a choice.
Definitely.
We have to do it, or they'll fire us all and find some people that will do it.
Well, it's really good that you've taken that attitude in terms of making sure there is an environmental basis. Yeah, and literally, it was good that you brought it up because I had written it down this morning. That would be the question I'm going to ask you: is how you do? And I actually thought of that question as I went past your office this morning, and think, EV. We'll have a chat about that today. So yes, we'll come back in a moment. Have a chat about where you are. You've sort of obviously mentioned Pennsylvania, your office up there. You're going up towards Sinclair at some point, aren't you?
Yeah, off towards Callington.
Callington as well. Okay,
warehouse in Pennsylvania that we should be moving into September, we hope.
Brilliant. Okay.
Which is very nice, and that would start the build heading towards Pennsylvania itself as well.
Okay. And you've heard about Callington. You've had all your jabs and things, have you? Or
I've walked around Callington. It's quite safe. I found it quite a nice place.
Okay.
So far, yes.
I'm just putting that one out there. So sorry, Callington. We love you really. So, and I believe your daughter's got a job. Is that right? So we're going to play a tune for her. So.
Yeah, Claire's down in London working for the School of Ballet Rambert.
Right,
yes,
okay.
So, yes, she's asked for her song from Billy Joel, hasn't she?
Lovely, okay. And this hopefully will be the one that comes through now. You rant on Facebook.
That's a good way. Yeah.
We were just talking about customer service there, young guest. So I'm having a good old rant on Facebook about these companies. We're joined in the studio with Will Dennett. We're talking about where you're going at the moment. If you're a business, how do they get in touch with you?
Easiest is to call our 0800 number.
Great.
0800 06 999 06.
Right.
Or if you contact us via the contact page on our website, willdennett.com. Glenn and George are ready and willing to take your call and talk to you.
Brilliant.
They're pretty experienced in the telecom arena and can help you out in pretty much any of your business needs.
Fantastic.
Really.
Yeah. And whereabouts is the cables that you're saying you're going out towards Callington at the moment?
So we're off towards Callington. Then the next place is Tor Point. We're finalising the designs around there now, and starting to walk the streets and what we call validation of the design. Where it's one thing seeing what the maps say, and quite another when you walk down the street. And,
I can imagine that.
I was surprised there's a pole in the way and things like that. So those validations are going on at the moment, and then moving up towards Launceston and that after that, and also into Truro as well.
Okay.
Those are sort of our next on the hit list.
And it's still being run from the Liskeard office then, is it?
The headquarters here in Liskeard. We have a remote office in Redruth as well.
Sure, yes.
So it's too far for some people to come for the stuff that we operate down that part of the county. So yes, we're headquartering it here. We might eventually get into Westbourne.
Right, okay. Is that still going on?
It is still going on,
You're
yes.
joking.
One day we might actually see the lease ready to get in there.
Blimey. Come on, Cornwall Council.
Indeed. It's starting to make it a bit of a struggle as a business.
I can imagine.
We've gone from 20 people to 62 in the last 6 months.
Yeah, all right.
We're quite jammed into that Elliott building.
Okay, I bet, yes. Yeah, we'll give a little nudge, I think, on that one. So, it does frustrate, doesn't it? So this whole thing, it's like, why is it taking so long?
Yeah.
And not just this, but so many other things. But anyway, I can't mention that on the air, which I just have. So. But and obviously you do Callington. Tor Point will be an interesting place, I think. Obviously you've got the sort of the military stuff out there. I guess they do all their own anyway.
Yeah, so we're going past their door, but
okay.
We haven't actually engaged with them about connecting or anything like that. Government secure network and things like that is already taken up. So,
And do you bring the infrastructure down from Plymouth Way to Tor Point? Will that come again from this way?
We're using dark fibre, which is essentially somebody else's fibre, and they just hand you the end of it, and you put your equipment on the end of it, to get from Plymouth to Tor Point. And then also from Plymouth up to Callington. But also to make it a circle from Liskeard to Callington as well. So if there's a failure of route, then we can go another way, kind of thing.
I like the way you describe somebody just stood there waiting with the names. I can see this engineer sort of stood in the street.
Just holding this for ages.
Anybody want this? Oh, well, it's great to hear that you are making good progress around the area, must admit. And you've got this warehouse coming into Pennsylvania, so I guess you're hitting that area as well soon. So because there's quite a lot of industry up at Pennsylvania Way now, isn't there?
Surprisingly, The estate that we're going on, I didn't really know existed until we looked on the. We went up to look at the building. I can't remember the name of the company that owns it. Nigel. They do eggs and things, and they're moving to a larger place.
Yeah.
And where we're taking over is their box packing warehouse.
Yes, yeah. And I've got a friend who's working up there at the moment. They're sort of like another unit's coming on the market, and he's going through having to strip all the old wiring out. And I think they're going to be up there for a few months by the looks of it. It's going to be a big project. So, yes, all the best with that anyway. It sounds good and positive. Always great to chat to you. I know we go off on different tangents. Always appreciate as well that you indulge the conversation. It's always good fun.
Not a worry. Always good to come here and not have my phone ring for an hour.
Oh, it's nice to switch it off, isn't it? Yes. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things, obviously, got to be a bit minefield over the conversations, but I do love exploring different topics and just seeing where it goes.
Cool.
And hopefully let people out there finding things to think about as well, and it's really fascinating. So thank you very much again for coming in. I'm sure you'll come back in September.
See you next month,
Thanks very much. Appreciate
it.
Thank you. Right, our next tune is Here I Go Again. I do love that tune. I don't know why, but I do love it. Thanks again to WorldNet for popping in. It's always appreciated. Always interesting conversations. And I know they do go off left, right and centre, but that's part of the nature of the Amberlin Show.